Last time we experienced the low of our trip with a flat tire and canceled plans.
Yet we visited Altaness, the Swan Peninsula, circled Hafnarfjörður, and tasted the renowned Icelandic hot dog.
After flying over and driving around the Fagradalsfjall Volcano, now it was time to hike to it.
This is gonna be awesome. Alright, let's see how in shape I am. Oh, I'm going to die.
Are you kidding me? Get up and keep hiking. You embarrass your Nordic lineage.
I can do this. I can do this. Okay. Before Ascension Day was finished, I was able to confirm how to schedule a PCR test for returning to the US. It was travel.covid.is. Anyway, first things first, get that test. Testing was a pretty well-oiled machine in May. I'm sure it's just as good, if not better now. There is a cost to the test, around $54 US. It won't break your bank, but be aware if you are keeping your trip lean. Next up was getting our tire reviewed by a professional. Close to the testing clinic was a Dakkjaholten, or a tire shop. I figured it had a good rating and was right there, might as well. The service representative was excellent. She reviewed our flat tire, the spare, called the rental company and made sure our full-size tire was good to go and eased any worry there was about the situation. We also learned she had a cousin in Ripon, Wisconsin. Code it! That's three! 3 connections to Wisconsin. There's always a connection to Wisconsin. With all the formalities over, we scooted back into Reykjavík. Our first stop was 12 Tónar. 12 Tónar is a cool record store. Sure, you can get all kinds of US artists streaming, or if you still buy physical media on vinyl or CD, but this store specializes in local musicians, selling their music, and by being a record label. We chatted up the manager or the owner, I can't quite remember who he was. Even though he was getting bread out of the oven and rushing off to meetings, he still had time for a conversation with 2 out-of-country travelers. We didn't leave with music, but had some drinks, got a t-shirt, tote, and some posters to remember the trip. I highly recommend making the stop. Second was Hallgrímskirkja. We wanted to come back so we could go inside. There wasn't as much time to review the main area as a funeral was going to start, but we had time to go up into the tower. At first, the elevator opens to a temperature-controlled area with a little history of the church. If it's too cold and windy outside, this area still gives a good view over the town and won't have you exposed to the elements. From here, you can climb up the stairs to the open area at the top. Depending on the time, you may be suddenly frightened by the ringing of bells. The top of the tower has open-air windows with boxes to step up on to get a view over Reykjavík from all angles. You can spot all sorts of landmarks around town. The Harpa, Rainbow Street, the Pearland, and the Einar Jónsson Museum, where we will be going next. We were only back downtown for a short time, so we got a taste of this museum from its sculpture garden. The sculptures here range from interesting to humorous to devastating. From what I could tell, each sculpture was created in the first half of the 20th century. And it takes a little bit to put yourself in the mind of an artist who was going through the historical events of that time, trying to get a handle on why Einar Jónsson chose the subjects he did. One piece that stands out is grief. It has a person grieving their loss, also reaching out to touch their loved one who has passed on. But that loved one isn't the same. While the one grieving is still modeled in 3D, the one passed on is only represented in 2 dimensions. Like they are there, but not there. It's pretty intense. It is free to roam through this sculpture garden, so if you are on a budget or low on time, you don't have to do the full museum to have an experience. Speaking of, do you want to make the rounds of the museums in Reykjavík? Oh, well, this would be another Iceland hot tip! You want to make the rounds of all the museums in Reykjavík? I'd recommend the Reykjavík City Card. You can get it to cover 24, 48, or 72 hours of your stay. It includes unlimited bus travel within the capital area. Wah! Admission into thermal pools in town. Oh yeah! As well as admission into the following museums. Oh my. And also, here is the cost, because I didn't put it in a friendly way to say out loud. But you can read it, right? You can read, can't you? Oh God, tell me you can read! Wait, I can't even hear you. It won't, you don't, this is getting very strange. Next up, lunch. With wanting to be timely, we chose the restaurant across the street, Café Loki. Bethany ordered the special of the day, which, since I didn't take a picture of the menu, I assume was cod with potatoes and a veggie salad. I ordered the Icelandic plate boulder, which consisted of 2 slices of rye bread, one with mashed fish and the other with egg and herring, and a serving of Loki's unique rye bread ice cream. It was great. I'd recommend this restaurant to anyone traveling through the area, although in peak tourism, I'd expect it to be busy. After lunch, we collected our parking ticket and headed out of town to the volcano. Second Iceland hot tip. Pay for your parking before you walk away. But if you do get a ticket, pay it as soon as you can because the cost will only rise with time. There is a bank at the airport if you have no other option. That is your last resort to pay your tickets. But back to the Fagradalsfjall Volcano, we skirted Kleifarvatn. It is beautiful. Due to Bethany's toe injuries, she scheduled a meetup with her friend in town and dropped me off at parking lot B. Being excited, I took off. Probably with too much vigor down the initial trail. People of all ages were hiking, and that made my worry of the intensity of the hike lessen. Not yet fully understanding that Icelanders are far more fit on average than US citizens. Before long, I was at the base of the climb, and luckily, I could see that they had blazed a trail for hikers to make it easier. When I saw videos prior to arriving, there was a rather vertical portion of the hike that seemed pretty intense. At this point, I was a little hot, so I took a layer off and started hiking up the mountain. And that's when it started snowing, because of course. As I continued climbing the trail, I became more and more exhausted. At a point, I didn't know what I would physically do. Would I pass out or vomit? And not being sure, I sat down to hydrate and welcome whatever was gonna happen next. I wanna give a call out to this guy. I believe his name is Jordan. He was my hiking buddy for the last bit. While I was dying, he kept looking back to me to make sure I was okay. Once I got up and started moving again, we encouraged each other and he continued to watch over me and I him. Together, we reached the first viewing area. After a few eruptions, Jordan said his goodbyes and hiked down the mountain. I continued to sit for another cycle or two of eruptions, fully expecting to pack up and head back down myself due to being so utterly wasted by the first climb. That is when I listened to my inner voice. Would I have looked back on the situation with regret if I did not continue? Yes. I would have been disappointed in myself. So, I rested, and when I felt ready, I continued forward. The trail at the time took hikers wide east around some ridges of Geldingadalar, and to that side at that time was a single earth mover trying to build a makeshift barrier against an immense and encroaching lava field that was maybe a little more than 2 meters high. Remembering not to get too close because of gas, and not knowing when lava could pour out unexpectedly, I kept walking along the trail. Before the volcano, there was one last hill. I took a swig of water and headed forward, only stopping once or twice while climbing because, why wreck myself? But once at the top, oh my, there it was, right there. I remember being tired from the hike and slowly walking across the small group of people on the peak at that time, then being pelted by very light rocks that had been ejected from the volcano, cooled in the air and falling on top of us. It was surreal. But luckily, I had heard about this possibly happening from the Reykjavík Grapevine. It's a great channel and publication, check them out. With the junky weather, I didn't put on my external microphone and I grit my teeth at that choice in hindsight. The audio is pretty garbage, but the visuals are pretty good. I sat and tried to feel the volcano, hearing it, seeing it so close, and feeling its heat and concussive sound was amazing. It's truly something I feel privileged to have witnessed. This whole time, though, the weather did not stop being a jerk. It was snowing, it was sunny, it was sleeting, it was raining. It was beating us all down slowly. At a point, I knew I had had enough. I packed up my stuff and started hiking back. And I once again asked myself, would I regret not getting close to that fresh lava field? And again, the answer was yes. So I hiked closer, but as soon as I felt that heat from it, I did not get closer, and then continued down the mountain. All was fine, and I made it back to parking area B and was picked up by Bethany. Again, we skimmed Kleifarvatn, this time powdered with snow on our way back to Hafnarfjörður. I perused reviews of local restaurants for dinner suggestions on the way back and decided upon one mathús. Also right there was one of my favorite things of this part of the trip. It's not anything big. It's just the logo of a chiropractor. But it just entertained me so much since I can only see it as a magician levitating their assistant. No, you will never unsee it either! That chiropractor's in the same building as one mathús. The place has a great reputation and you'll quickly discover why. I ordered some delicious whiskey sour. They're smaller than Wisconsin portions, but very good. Bethany had a specialty martini. I can't say which one it was, but it was recommended by the staff. For our meal, we had a delicious parfait starter, a cod plate, and a beef plate that we shared between us. Everything was excellent and highly recommended. If you're looking for a place to eat in Hafnarfjörður, one mathús should be high on your list of places to stop. Next time. We make one last stop at Kleifarvatn because we love the views. Smell the hot springs at Krusavik. And circle the Reykjanes Peninsula before getting to the airport. Come back next time for more Iceland 2021.